Winter night of 2025 on the A22 highway near Birmingham, Alabama, the air was biting cold, carrying the breath of an extended winter. The rain drizzled, each tiny droplet gliding by like cold dust from an invisible world. The wind howls through the bare rows of trees, making them look like gaunt ghosts standing by the roadside. The long stretch of road was silent, with only the headlights from the rare passing cars cutting through the thick darkness and damp air. One could only hear the sound of the engine echoing in the stillness, like a reminder that in this dark night, loneliness is the most noticeable thing. In that tranquil space, Olivia Hartwell sat firmly in her old SUV, a strong woman, yet her eyes held a deep sorrow. She is a 38-year-old African-American lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Her Air Force jacket was crisp, but her dark skin and sturdy physique could not hide the fatigue on her face. Today was a long day with a military strategy meeting where important decisions were made, but it couldn't make her feel relieved. She turned the steering wheel, tapping her fingers lightly to the rhythm of the music playing from the radio. Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit echoed, each note a sorrowful reminder of the past. The painful memories of her beloved father, who was beaten by the police in front of her when she was only 10 years old, kept resurfacing in her mind. In the quiet late night, Olivia kept thinking, her eyes fixed ahead. Although tired, she remained calm, like a resilient warrior, waiting to see how the next chapter of life would challenge her. But then, a red-blue light flashed in the rearview mirror, pulling her out of her daydreams. She felt her heart racing, not out of fear, but because of a vague premonition that something would go wrong tonight. She gradually slowed down and pulled the car over to the side, her eyes never leaving the rearview mirror. A patrol car stopped beside her, and the officer stepped out, tall, wearing a worn leather jacket, his boots splashing down into a puddle. The flashlight beam shone directly into Olivia's car window, making her eyes squint. His voice was cold and devoid of any emotion. Documents. Hurry up. Olivia took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice from betraying her tension. She handed over the documents and asked gently, "What have I done wrong, officer?" The officer scoffed, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "The taillight is broken." "You don't need to know more." Olivia frowned, a sense of unease filling her heart. Her car was just checked last week. Everything was fine. She replied with confidence, but also with a hint of anxiety, "I think you're mistaken." The officer tilted his head, his cold gaze threatening. "Do you dare say I'm wrong? Get out of the car." In an instant, Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. Her father's words echoed in her mind like a resilient reminder. "Don't let them see you scared, Liv." She took a deep breath, feeling every cell in her body struggle between remaining silent to avoid trouble and standing up for her rights. While the car door was still closed, Olivia discreetly activated the recording on her smartwatch. A small action, but it will definitely change everything. The cold wind cut through Olivia's thin black sweater as she stepped out of the car. Raindrops speckled her face and shoulders, but nothing could ease the tension rising within her. The deserted highway was like a still life painting, with only the sound of rain and the distant hum of a patrol car engine behind. Everything felt like a nightmare from which one could not awaken. Carver stood close to her, trying to dominate with his height and aggressive demeanor. His eyes were cold, as if everything around him was his to control. "Turn back, hands on the car," he ordered in a voice as cold as ice. Olivia did not answer immediately. She just looked at him with a cold gaze, a gaze that was neither fearful nor weak. "For what reason?" she asked, but a feeling of unease was already rising within her. Carver said sharply, "Because I said so." Without saying another word, Olivia quietly complied, taking a few steps towards the patrol car. Although no words were spoken, her eyes remained resolute, as if conveying a silent message. She would not be subdued. When Carver tightened the handcuffs, Olivia let out a slight gasp of pain. She felt the tension in every muscle, but her face remained expressionless. She whispered her words barely audible to him, "You will regret it." Carver laughed loudly, a laugh devoid of any humanity, full of mockery. "You're just a troublemaker." Olivia clearly felt the insult in every word he said, but she did not react. Inside, a surge of anger was rising, but military discipline, her father's lessons, and the patience she had learned over many years in the army made her choose silence. She knew that sometimes patience was the best way to deal with people like Carver, waiting for the right moment to resist. Carver shoved her into the patrol car, slammed the door shut, startling Olivia. She looked through the window and saw him smirking as if he had won. His voice echoed through the intercom, unaware that the recording was still running. Another stubborn one. Handled. Those words were just a part of the story. Olivia knew well that what he didn't see was her preparation to find a way to resist more intelligently, not just with strength, but also with intellect. As the car began to roll, Olivia turned her head to look out the window, her rain-soaked eyes reflecting determination, as if she were speaking to someone who wasn't there. "This is not the end, Father." A quiet determination burned within her, strong and unquenchable. The small and cold cell, with its mottled concrete walls, seems as if it has never seen sunlight. The smell of old coffee and sweat mingled with the gloomy atmosphere, creating a space full of suffocation. Olivia sat silently on the cold metal bench, feeling as if the blood in her veins was gradually freezing. Her hands were numb from the tight cuffs, but she didn't move at all. The pains had become familiar, like the painful memories that always lingered in her life. Through the iron bars, the laughter and banter of the officers echoed, as if they were enjoying a playful game, completely indifferent to those imprisoned in the darkness. Olivia looked out through the iron bars, but her gaze was not immersed in the present scenery. Instead, memories from the past surged back, as powerful as a raging storm. She recalled that night, the night her father was dragged out of the car, her mother's screams echoing in the darkness. At that time, she was just a child, weak and helpless, only able to stand and watch without being able to do anything. That feeling, the feeling of hopelessness and pain, has etched itself deeply into her mind. But it was that very pain that made her the strong woman she is today, a person who is no longer easily boycotted or abused by others. However, sometimes she still wonders in her heart, am I on the right path? She whispered into the darkness, a resolute self-affirmation, you must not fall, Liv. She couldn't let herself be defeated, couldn't let the memories of the past become a burden dragging her down. She has come too far to turn back. The sound of footsteps in the hallway pulled her from her thoughts. Carver appeared outside the bars, his eyes gleaming with mockery. "Who do you think you are to dare oppose me?" he asked, his tone mocking. "No one cares." Olivia smiled coldly, her eyes sharp as a razor. "Just wait and see." That confidence not only made Carver feel uncomfortable, but also made him momentarily waver. But then he quickly scoffed, showing contempt. "You will rot in here, girl." Olivia didn't say anything more. She just maintained her composure, while complex thoughts kept swirling in her mind. The recording is still in her hands, and if there is one thing she is certain of, it is that she will not let herself be subdued. But deep down, she also knew that Carver was not the greatest danger she had to face. Suddenly, the cell door swung open, and a young officer stepped in with a tense expression. He trembled as he held the phone in his hand, looking at Carver with a puzzled expression. "Boss." The governor's office called. "They asked about this woman," he said, his voice slightly off-key. Carver growled, his face hardening. "Tell them to get lost," he shouted. But the young officer couldn't remain silent. He stammered. "They say she's an Air Force major, and a recording has just been sent up." Carver's face turned pale. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead as he realized he had made a serious mistake. He had not anticipated this resistance, and now everything could change. Olivia eavesdropped on everything through the iron bars, and although she still said nothing, a faint smile appeared on her lips. The seed of justice has begun to sprout, and although this battle is not over, she knows that irreversible changes have already begun. The courtroom was packed, the atmosphere so suffocating it felt like it could be cut into chunks. The dim light from the large window illuminated Olivia, now wearing an Air Force uniform, the bright badge glinting on the blue fabric of her shirt. She sat firmly, gripping the armrest, her eyes fixed on Carver, who was sitting across from her, sweat trickling down his forehead. Both seemed to be preparing for a fierce confrontation, a battle not only for justice, but also for what had happened in the past. Next to Olivia was lawyer Emily Grayson, sharp, unyielding, the one she had placed her trust in, the only one who made her feel she could win this battle. In the cramped space, reporters, officials, and citizens gathered at the back, the atmosphere like a brewing storm, full of curiosity and tension. All eyes were on Olivia, but she did not waver. The recording has been released, and now it's time for all the truth to come to light. The prosecutor stood up, his voice echoing throughout the room. Lieutenant Hartwell was unlawfully arrested. This is the recording. Carver's voice immediately boomed through the speaker, rough and arrogant. She resisted! I'm just doing my duty. The murmurs of the crowd immediately rose like a fierce wave, the noise and whispers quietly spreading throughout the space. But Olivia remained absolutely calm, that in stark contrast to the anger clearly visible in Carver's eyes. Lawyer Emily Grayson did not let the opportunity slip away. She stood up, her eyes shining like a flame. 87% of your arrests target people of color, she said, her tone unyielding. This is your habit, isn't it? Emily's words were like a punch to Carver's face, leaving him speechless, unable to say anything more. For a moment, Carver's expression turned bewildered, and his confidence seemed to have completely vanished. At that moment, a footstep echoed, and Mrs. Grace, Olivia's mother, stepped up to the witness stand. The courtroom fell silent, and all attention suddenly shifted to her. Mrs. Grace stood there, her eyes red, her voice choked with emotion. 20 years ago, my husband was beaten to death by the police in front of Olivia. The girl swore she would not let anyone suffer like we did. She paused for a moment. Tears began to fall down her cheeks. Olivia had to witness that scene, and now she is doing everything so that no one else has to live through that pain. The courtroom was silent. Everyone was stunned. No one said anything. Both Carver and the audience were stunned into silence by this shock. Mrs. Grace's heartbreaking story made the atmosphere in the courtroom feel frozen, and the truth about the Hartwell family's pain was no longer a distant tale. It was a wound left in the hearts of everyone present. Judge Harold Grayson struck the gavel, breaking the silence. All charges against Lieutenant Colonel Hartwell are dismissed. Officer Carver will be thoroughly investigated. These words were like a breaking wave, shattering all of Carver's hopes. He jumped up, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. This is a scam, Carver shouted, but immediately the security staff rushed in and dragged him out, leaving him with nothing to do but scream in anger. Olivia sat silently, not saying a word. But when she looked up, her eyes met her mother's, and in that moment, both of them understood what had just happened. She knew this was not just her personal victory. This is a victory for justice, for the values she has always believed in. The look they exchanged needed no words, only resilience and deep empathy. And even though the road ahead is still fraught with challenges, Olivia knows that she has taken an important step on the journey to reclaim justice for herself and for all those like her. The police station that day was like a battlefield, chaotic and full of tension. The phone rang incessantly, as if it would never stop. People hurriedly ran back and forth, but their eyes could not hide their anxiety. The main door kept opening and closing, and the reporters outside showed no signs of stopping their siege. They took photos, recorded audio, and incessantly asked about the incident that had shaken the entire city. The public's attention is now focused on one person, Jack Carver. He walked into the office of Director James Monroe, a silver-haired man with a cold and emotionless expression. Monroe's gaze was as sharp as a razor, looking at Carver without a hint of empathy. Carver walked in with an arrogant demeanor, but deep down he couldn't help but feel a bit of fear. Since this incident happened, everything has started to fall apart. Monroe slammed the file onto the table, causing a loud noise in the silent room. "Do you think you're invulnerable, Jack?" he shouted, his voice firm without a trace of pity. "The press is tearing us apart." "You're done," Carver roared, his voice filled with anger. "I'm just doing my job." He thought he was doing the right thing, but deep down he also felt the unstoppable downward spiral. Monroe did not change his expression. His eyes were as cold as ice. "No, you overstepped your authority. Now, pay the price." Monroe's words hit Carver like a strong blow, leaving him unable to justify himself any further. Images of the past suddenly flooded Carver's mind. He remembers the first time he wore the police uniform, the feeling of pride and the awareness that he would protect the innocent. He once dreamed of becoming a hero, someone who brings justice to society. But then, power changed him. Power has turned him into a bully, someone who can no longer see the line between justice and abuse of power. He has lost his way, and now he must face the painful truth. He is no longer the hero in this story. Carver was immediately suspended from duty, facing serious criminal charges. His footsteps in the police station corridor were like those of a failure, no longer having a place in the world he once thought was his. When he left the office, no one looked at him. His colleagues turned their backs, their eyes filled with disdain and caution. The feeling of loneliness enveloped him, as if everything he had built throughout his career had now collapsed in an instant. The rain fell steadily and coldly as Carver stepped out of the police station. Each step seemed heavy, as if the whole world were weighing down on his shoulders. He has nothing left but shame and overwhelming loneliness. A whole life has been shattered just because of one big mistake. Standing in front of the police station, Carver looked back one last time. The sturdy walls, which he once took pride in being a part of, have now become a painful memory. He whispered, his voice so soft it was almost inaudible. I was wrong. A rare moment of awakening and self-awareness. But perhaps it is too late to fix it. The park in the late afternoon is quiet and full of emotion. The cool autumn air seems to soothe all worries. Olivia sat on the bench, the fiery sunset casting a warm glow on her face, highlighting her strong and determined features. Around her, children were playing, their clear laughter echoing throughout the space, softening the sadness she carried in her heart. Each of their laughter is a reminder of a world still filled with good things and of a future that can change. In her hand was an invitation from the Ministry of Defense, an invitation to speak at the Police Reform Conference, where she would share her story and fight for a fairer justice system. But that letter was not a sign of victory. It was a crucial turning point in a journey she had never anticipated. She stared at it, her mind swirling with the question that kept echoing in her head, should I continue, or should I just stop here? Her mother's words, the look of fear in her eyes from 20 years ago, resurfaced in Olivia's mind. Her mother had always worried about her, about what could happen if she delved too deeply into this battle. But then, her resilience in court, the strength she displayed in the face of losing her husband, all made Olivia realize that she could not stop. She couldn't stop for her mother, for her father, and for all those without a voice, those who endure injustice without being able to speak out. She knows that she must continue to fight, not only for herself, but also for all those who are waiting for change. At that moment, a young girl of color, about 8 years old, ran up to her. With sparkling bright eyes, the little girl handed Olivia a wildflower, its delicate petals vibrant with life. "Thank you for being brave," the girl said, her voice clear but full of gratitude. Olivia couldn't hold back her emotions, smiling, but tears began to fall. This was the first time she had cried in years. The tears seemed to release all the pain she had buried throughout her life. That feeling was both relieving and sad. But in the end, she realized that she no longer had to bear everything alone. She was not the only one suffering, and now she could turn this pain into action to do something greater. Olivia is no longer the strong, reserved woman she used to be. She is no longer just a woman in uniform. Now, she has become a symbol of hope for many. A woman who dares to stand up and fight, dares to speak out for what is right. She knows that her journey has not yet ended. Rather, it has just begun. She stood up, looking towards the sunset, the last light of the day illuminating her face like a sign of a new beginning. She whispered to herself, but the words carried all the determination and faith in the future. This is just the beginning. The major conference in Washington, D.C. is a significant event, attracting thousands of delegates from all over the country, from military personnel, activists, to citizens concerned about justice and police reform. The vast auditorium was filled with tension and anticipation. Under the bright lights, Olivia stood on the podium, in her neat military uniform, the Air Force badge gleaming on her chest, her eyes no longer filled with fear, but burning with determination. She had overcome all the challenges, and now she stood before the crowd, not to boast, but to fight for what she believed in. She took a deep breath, looking around the auditorium. All eyes were on her, those waiting to hear the words of a woman who had become a symbol of an unyielding struggle. She knew that it was not just her standing here, but all those who had stood up with her, all the victims of injustice, were here, even though she could not see them. Olivia held the microphone, her voice echoing in the vast space. "I do not fight to be celebrated," she began, her voice calm yet powerful. "I fight so that no one has to fear seeing the patrol car lights in the rearview mirror anymore." That statement was like a thunderclap, silencing the entire auditorium. Then the applause erupted, unceasing, like a tribute to her courage and resilience. But Olivia did not pay attention to the applause. She only thought of the little girl in the park that day when she gave her the wildflower, her eyes clear and full of gratitude. That is the future she had fought for, a future where there is no more fear, where people can live in freedom and justice. She continued, "Justice is not something easily attained. It requires courage and a refusal to remain silent. A person can change the system if they don't give up. I stand here not for myself, but for all those who have no voice, for those who are never heard." Each of Olivia's words carries a powerful message, a reminder that justice is not a distant dream, but something everyone can contribute to achieving. Just don't give up. When the speech ended, Olivia stepped down from the podium, but the excitement within her had not completely faded. She wasn't seeking glory, but she couldn't help but feel the change happening around her. At the wings, her mother was waiting. When Olivia stepped closer, no words were spoken, just a tight embrace. No explanations needed, no comfort required. It was a hug full of strength, love, and empathy. The two of them stood there in silence but with strength, as if there was nothing more to say. They understood everything that needed to be said. Olivia fought and achieved a partial victory, but above all, she found a new strength. The strength of belief in justice, in the future, and in herself. She knew that this was just the beginning.